Hello, Paige here, your Watersheds educator with the Fraser Valley Watersheds Coalition. Today we're going to be talking about watersheds. So we're going to go over the definition of a watershed, some of the terms that we use, as well as their function and just the importance of them. We're also going to use our watershed model to show how water moves through a watershed. So we'll start with the definition of a watershed. A watershed is all of the land area that drains into the same body of water. Now, the boundaries of a watershed are the mountains and the ridges. So we have our mountain here, and a ridge line coming down this side, and a ridge line coming down this side. So this all is one watershed. A watershed has a few different inputs. So that is the water coming into the watershed. We have glacier melt at the top. We get precipitation as well as groundwater flow. A watershed has different zones or areas. We have the upland area, which we call the contribution zone, because all of the water that comes into the upland area gets contributed to the watershed. We also have the collection zones. So this is a little bit lower down the mountain and in like flatter areas. So here we have what would be like a wetland, and this is a collection area because the water gets slowed down, it can get stored here. Here's another wetland down here. And then we have the conveyance zone. So the conveyance zone is where the water is moving. So our river in the center will be the conveyance zone. Any little streams coming in. So watersheds are so important. They have many functions, including water storage, cleaning and filtering water, as well as slowing down the flow of water. Say we have a glacier melting in the upland area here. So we've got water slowly melting. Now, do you notice how these trees are slowing the flow of the water down? They're slowing the flow and they're absorbing some of it. Okay, let's look a little bit lower down our mountain now. So we've still got some glacier melt and we've got some precipitation. So do you see how we have some water getting absorbed into our wetland here? It's slowing down the water and it's filtering the water. Okay, as we move further down, we get more precipitation. So our wetland here is slowing the water, it's filtering the water, and it's storing some of the water. So on this watershed model, we have a natural side and a developed side. So there's differences in how water moves, depending if it's a natural watershed or a developed watershed. So earlier we talked about how the water moves through the natural side of the watershed. The trees slow the water down, the wetlands store it and filter it. But let's take a look at what happens on our developed side. So we've got some snow melt and some precipitation. Do you see how fast the water is moving through our watershed? So water moves a lot faster through the developed side through a developed watershed because there's less things to slow it down. Because In a developed area, many of the surfaces are impervious, so there's nowhere for water to infiltrate into the ground. Our surfaces are smooth, so the water flows off of them a lot quicker. As well, if you noticed, in our residential area up here, we have a piped system. So just like in real life, in our watershed model, the water from our residential area gets directed into a pipe and then comes out farther down. This also increases the speed of the water flow because it's directing a large amount of water into a small area. So water through a natural watershed area moves differently than through a developed area. Through a developed area, there's a lot of impervious surfaces. This increases the speed of water flow, which increases erosion and the movement of pollutants. However, there's a lot that we can do to improve this. So through watershed planning, we can implement strategies to mimic a natural watershed. You'll learn more about it in another video. To recap, in this video, we talked about what a watershed is. We went over the boundaries of a watershed, the zones of a watershed, the functions of a watershed, and the overall importance of watersheds. We also looked at how water moves through a natural watershed versus a developed area of a watershed. Thank you so much for watching.